So I make a lot of case now for frameworks, yeah. And the reason I make a case for frameworks is frameworks are absolutely important from a perspective of modeling. If we do not model properly, we do not understand if what we have done should have been done, but more importantly, what we have done, what would it take for it to be improved? You know, so that whole thing of accidental versus conscious, accidental versus intentional. The problem, especially when it comes to implementing things, is it's not as much as when you continue to fail. That is a problem in itself too. I don't want to suggest that that's not a problem, but for me the bigger problem is when you actually succeed and post that success, post the celebration of that success, you have no idea how and why you succeeded. Now, if you won't understand why you succeeded, how are you going to replicate it? And as a leader especially, it becomes even more difficult for you now to bring forward what you need to bring forward. Like, you cannot look at people and say, it's my core intelligence, it's my instinct. Like, what are they gonna ask people that are counting upon you to lead them? What are they gonna work with? Try develop your instinct? No, they're looking for some directive energy, some directive approach, yeah. And you're only able to give it to them if you, in your own first place, starting out when you were on your design board, had taken the time to set up things in a way that you could learn from what was happening, yeah. So that's why the idea of frameworks is like, frameworks allow you to do a few things. Frameworks allow you to build a formal language. Frameworks also allow you to build a conscious test because they allow you to benchmark things. And the third thing is frameworks allow you to then, with a common language and the ability for you to test, they allow you to impart your knowledge or communicate your knowledge or share your knowledge in a very consistent way. So there's a consistency to it. You're not going to people and every single, like, how many times would you have found yourself in a situation where somebody explained something to you and the next time when you went to them, they explained that thing to you slightly differently, either the difference being in the language or the difference being in the structure that they used to explain it, and now you're a bit confused saying, but I thought it was this way and now it is this way, and I can see how they are related, but it's still like I was trying to build my knowledge and my understanding based upon this thing. So this conscious habit, every single time you have to design something, every single time you have to communicate something, every single time that you have to lead something, this consciousness around bringing a framework that allows for understanding, a common understanding, that allows for a clarity in decision making, and that allows for an intentionality in learning. That is very important. Yeah. Now, how can you do frameworks? You can do frameworks in a multiplicity of ways. The most easy thing is to start with borrowing frameworks. So when we borrowed the framework, the 3 Horizon framework recently, it's a framework that McKinsey had. So the easiest thing is to borrow a framework. The second thing is you can develop your own frameworks. As an example of, I developed a framework recently. I've been busy explaining things to people on why when they come to Canada, they struggle a little bit. And my framework on that is that people need to have 3 things when they come to Canada, whether they come as an international student or as a resident, permanent resident: understanding of the context and the reality of the environment that they're getting into. Like, take the time to, like, how are you finding out that the healthcare sucks in your opinion, which is not the opinion I carry? When you get here, you had access to all the resources to really get a sense of what is it that you're going to want to have and how. Why did you not develop that understanding when you were still in the environment that you were comfortable in relatively? Yeah. Second thing is a plan. I understand this. Now what's my plan? So as an example, how do you not know the housing is expensive? And what was your plan about it? Like, why did you bring 2 months of rent coverage when you know that the housing in general is expensive? Third, expectation. So you have an understanding, you have a plan. What's the expectation you have in terms of the time it would take for you to settle? What's your expectation? Like, you cannot come here and be looking for love within 6 months of getting here and then be talking about isolation, social isolation, which is not to suggest that people do not feel social isolation, which is to suggest that your expectation is not in conformance with what should have been your understanding and what should have been a part of your plan. Like, you came here as an international student. Why are you not focused on your studies? And getting a bad grade in the first semester, in the first 4 months of your program, is going to set you up horribly for struggle because you didn't have a plan, and now your expectation is all over the place. So that's an example of a self-created framework to explain things to people in a consistent way. Now, what that would do for me with all that I've mentioned to you is it's given me that language with the intentionality. It's also given me a bench. Now I constantly measure this. Like, when I talk to people, now I will have a way of asking them, what was your understanding? What was your plan? What was your expectation? And now I can move it. And the third thing is, it does allow for me to bring my knowledge to them, because instead of me just giving them random answers on random things, now I can structure my answers around, this is how I'm going to contribute to your understanding, this is how I'm going to contribute to your plan, and this is how I'm going to contribute to your expectation. So it's an example of. Now, the one key thing that has to be remembered in frameworks is frameworks are very personal. You build frameworks to build a sense of things. You build frameworks to be able to recognize a pattern, to reconstruct a pattern. So where I'm going with that is, it's perfectly okay for you to take a framework that exists and then to mold it in a way that makes sense to you. It's not the absoluteness of it. It is the actual usefulness of it. So, as an example, when I talk about the 3 horizons, they don't say optimization, building, and innovation. They may say it slightly differently, but that's how it makes sense to me. As I'm able to use it to explain and convey my sense of it, it's all good. I don't have to worry about it. So when you get into this habit of and the discipline of frameworking, and that's where the rule of 3s is a framework, because then every single time you're doing something, you'll think in the context of, like, what are the 3 things I need to tell? And then that also gets you into the habit of, the discipline of, and people start getting used to it. Yeah. So very important in your own leadership capacity to start using frameworks. Read up on them. If you want a list of frameworks that are commonly available frameworks that you can borrow from, you can. But the most important thing is frameworks are building blocks. They are a tool in your leadership toolkit, and you use them to make sense and to help people make sense. So don't get too caught up on them being perfect. Don't get too caught up on using them exactly for how they are, where you have read them. Use them more for inspiration, and use them more for the Lego of what it is that you want to use to drive decision making. Yeah. So sense making and decision making both are served really well by frameworking. Yeah. So